Oh, got it. Great. We're good.
Good. Let's roll. Okay. First order, thank you for coming, you guys. Appreciate it. First order of business call to order. We have Lenny Reich, Paul Feinberg, Mike Barrett, Pat Donahue, and guest Hans Rasmussen. Our first order of new business, as you know, we had a good meeting with the select board on their May 2nd meeting where we presented.
Excuse me. We don't have Mike Garino, right?
No, Mike Garino.
Right.
Yeah.
I just started a Zoom meeting. Can I call you back? Yeah, a little bit. Bye-bye.
You okay, Paul?
Yep.
Go. The select board agreed to our suggestion that we follow the comprehensive plan, and instead of increase the scope of our work from the Lakes Committee to include all of Belgrade's natural resources. They asked us to come back with them with changes to the bylaws and the charter for their review. And so that's our task at hand, is to make those changes, discuss them, and get back to them. Also, we'll have the topic of the new name, which was, they had a name recommended as the Lakes Natural Resources Committee, but that was just a recommendation at this point. So I think we can begin by I don't know if each of you have a copy of our current charter and bylaws. I emailed them out to you just so you could review them, but I have copies here we can hand out.
Hand me one, will you, Pat?
I'd like to.
I left all the files in the other house.
Do we need a stainless stone? Or is it really done?
Bylaws. This is the bylaws. I guess what's the difference in the I have
a charter.
Yeah.
And bylaws.
This is the charter.
Yeah. Mike, do you have a copy of the bylaws and charter on your email?
My email? No, I've got a copy, but it's at the other house.
Okay.
I didn't think to bring my file with me when I left. I came over to camp.
How about you, Paul?
I'm gonna go pick it up on your email.
Yeah.
He's sending you a copy on the email.
Oh. You send it? Well, I can't get it anywhere while I'm on this.
Yeah.
I got it.
Well, let me, if I could, just start out the discussion by saying, in looking at the descriptions, whether the charter, whatever the descriptions of the various committees or commissions that you sent around from towns around the state, it was pretty clear to me that most of them, in fact, I believe all of them, do more than what we do here as a committee. That is to say, our charge is strictly advisory to the select board or town council in other cases, whereas those committees or commissions, in most cases, actually do things as well as, in most cases, advise. It could be beautify, it could be educate, It could be work with landowners, for various reasons and so
much
forth.
more active doing things.
More active in terms of doing things. Could be establishing trails, nature trails, whatever it is. And so it seems to me an important question that we have to ask really from the get-go here in setting ourselves up as a conservation committee, or lakes and conservation, or lakes and natural resource committee, whatever we want to call ourselves, is, do we want to be, should we be, oh, I have the letter, should we be remain strictly advisory in that capacity, or do we want to, should we take on the sorts of tasks that some of these other committees and commissions are doing? Is that what we envision? I guess I would ask the question, and I couldn't answer this when I was pondering this question earlier today. What does the comprehensive plan or plans set out? As we're trying to meet the requirements of the comprehensive plans. I look back at the 2014 one, and it just referred to the 98 one. So
it kind of says take the lead, you know, kind of a sentence like take the lead on natural resource issues.
okay.
Not form this, do that.
Right.
It was like it's like a broad statement that
Okay, yeah.
needed to, but I think you're right, Lenny, as we look at, you know, these 6 or 7 other towns, they may have a committee that's responsible for a park and does all the work on that. They may have one, you know, for trails. They may have an education committee, like in Falmouth. So they're more like the Lakes Association and the Seven Lakes Alliance are built into what kind of the things. We already have people do that, you know, organizations.
Well, they are, yeah, right, sure, yeah, okay, fair enough. And Seven Lakes is doing that on land as well as in water. In the water or around the water. So yeah. So should this committee be strictly advisory, remain strictly advisory? And if that's the case, then hello, can you hear me?
Hey, I'm in a Zoom meeting. Can I call you back?
And if that's the case, if we're going to remain strictly advisory, then we can change our charter and bylaws by just adding a few words. But so anyway, you know, I would just
let me ask a question. If we go beyond advisory, are you suggesting we take on a regulatory authority?
No. Oh, absolutely not. I'm not suggesting we take it on. The select board would never give it to us. I don't think there's the slightest chance of that in the world, and I would not want it. No, I'm suggesting the possibility of what some of these other committees and commissions that we read about in the last week or so that are doing things like you know, establishing town parks or nature trails, or working with landowners to set aside property for public use, this sort of thing. A much more active involvement rather than just strictly an advisory one.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying, but the other thing that bothers me a little bit is duplicating, you know, efforts by others.
Right. Well, that's just what Pat said. Yeah. And don't misunderstand. I am not advocating that. I'm only asking the question. Whether we want to, if we're just going to stay strictly advisory, if that's the vision, staying strictly, if we're just going to stay strictly advisory, then modifying the charter and the bylaws is a relatively simple matter. If we're going to do more than what we have been doing, then it gets more involved.
I would suggest that we try and get a little more concrete on this. And while you were talking, Lenny, I was looking at what Pat sent us and looked at the mission statement of Cumberland.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think it's really well done. And the only thing it really adds is an educational component.
Yeah,
And whether, so I think we should try and like deal with the particular issues of whether we want to do it or not. And one would be educational, but I agree we're not going to get into recreation, and that's a lot of duplicity, and because you have Parks and Recreation Committee. But just to move this meeting along, I would suggest that I don't know if we can all look at the Cumberland one and see what works and does not work in that one, because I think it's pretty good.
I do too. Well, Pat here, I've got six towns here, and each one of them has one thing in common on their mission. That is to achieve basically what the Cumberland plan is, to achieve greater public awareness of the importance and need for conservation of natural resources and land within the town for open space and recreational purposes. It's that piece that it runs through every one I've seen, whether they're on the ocean or small towns or town Scarborough, bigger ones. That is kind of the thread. And the Cumberland one was particularly good because it covered a lot of wide range of natural resources, conserving land, water, open space, develop it. I'm not sure we'll develop educational programs and things like that, but could happen. And achieve a greater public awareness of the importance and need for conservation within the town. Those are things that I think.
And it says the commission will develop and recommend to the town council, this would be the select board, programs and policies to implement the conservation and related goals and objectives of the town's comprehensive plan. Yeah. That I think needs to be in there.
Yes, I agree. I think it's important to, what is the origin of this? It's the origin of the comprehensive plan that was voted on by the Belgrade residents, and this is taking it to what they wanted us to do, what they wanted the town to do.
Okay, sounds good.
So I mean, if you used Cumberland and took out the development of educational programs, I think it covers the waterfront, and I think that's the issue, whether we want to do any education, like the program that we had at the Center for All Seasons. I don't know if we had it, but
yeah, that was this committee's lead.
So that, so I would like to think that we would serve an educational purpose, because without education on all this, it falls on deaf ears.
So, I know likewise with all your efforts with the soil and the septic systems.
Right.
A lot of that's education. It's going to be reaching out, and the town is the one who's going to enforce it. So it's a just to move this along with. What do you think about wordsmithing the Cumberland one to fit ours?
Well, then what?
Or something like that.
You mean to make it ours in its entirety? What happens to our original one about the lakes?
Well, it has to have water, land, and open space. Maybe we can. What does it say? I got to look at our mission statement.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
It's a little bit.
Yeah. The Lakes Committees, the committees to consider, research, and discuss issues, concerns, and other matters that impact the community's greatest natural resources, lakes. We will work in partnership with Seven Lakes Alliance, the local lake associations, other towns that share the lakes, other stakeholders addressing lake-related matters. Will serve as an advisory body to the Board of Select Persons, and its recommendations will be brought to the Select Board for discussion and consideration.
Well, I could meld these two together, wordsmith these two, and I think we would be pretty good.
Yeah, in a shorter.
Oh yeah, right. Of course, yeah, right.
But I think that the charter really identifies what the Lakes Committee did, and it talks about our partners, which we have. Virtually in every select board meeting, we always acknowledge our partners, the Seven Lakes, the lake associations, etc. The lake trust. There's a lot of layers here that kind of make up the efforts with conservation and in this area.
I mean, perhaps to move this along, we should just agree that someone is gonna do the wordsmithing, and I mean, I'd be glad to do it and get back to us at the next meeting.
Right,
Okay,
sounds good.
good, Paul.
Just a question. Could this also encompass, like the commercial beautification? I mean, because right now, like the commercial zoning ordinance might require that a number of trees be planted, but there's no systematic way of saying, you know, you should have a 6-foot wide berm with not, you know, a mix of native species. But because people just plop trees down along the road, put a little mulch around it and hope they survive. And I don't know if this is outside the scope of where you want to be, but it's a town beautification type thing.
So that's a planning, that would be a planning board, piece of the planning board.
Yeah, but it's kind of outside their wheelhouse.
So we could give a recommendation to that.
Yeah, because I get a lot of calls on that Belvance lot.
Yeah,
It's ugly. And they did what they were required. They put trees, those trees are still there, but you would never know by looking at it.
no, it's a,
So a new standard, there's a void there, maybe can be filled. Just throwing that out.
I have this question, could the planning board, if it wished, set a standard of what needed to go in like the, you know, the commercial berm there?
Yeah.
So this committee could
recommend one.
recommend it to
Your advisory.
Yeah, we're advisory to
to the select board, but we could easily
kind of like, we did that in the solar, you know, the solar ordinance, we weighed in and you know, with a few of our concerns that we had, it was not, they were incorporated in it. So I think that would be, and there's a wealth of examples we can reach out to see what different towns do for, you know, those beautification strips. When I was in Scarborough, that was the #1 thing they started with. What's it gonna look like? They have lighting, you know, regulations, you know, so you weren't just lighting up the whole place, downcast lights if you needed them, and what type of plants. They had to be done by you know, an arborist or a landscaper, when, you know, they had to survive. They looked at the soils, they dug in deep on that.
Yeah. And
it made a difference because you got good product coming out, and applicants going into with a plan knew what they were getting into. That was part of it, just like you do another, you know, any other part of the plan. But it became like they really pushed it there, and it worked, because especially with development, I think you may be seeing more and more, and typically they'll do as little as they can.
Exactly.
And as small as they can.
And it doesn't help anything. I mean, I would personally, I'd like to see more larger wire lake berms that would actually help with runoff control as well. Because they got to do a runoff plan, erosion control plan. Those are industrial, and you know, a sewer drain that goes here or there, but it doesn't look pretty. I mean, you get outside the village, and the commercial properties need help.
And there's a lot of open space to do more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from Christie's to, you know, to the golf course, you've got, you know, lots of big open spaces, trees now, or fields, old field, that could change within a couple of years. And I think that could be one of the initial things we do.
Just something for you to think about.
Yeah, well, I mean, the question is, could we reasonably change wording right here at the end of the description to say to advise the select board and other town entities or town committees.
Town committee.
Or planning committees.
Yeah, the question is whether the select board would let us do that.
Why not just say advise the town? That takes care of all that, takes in all that in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
advise the town,
Yeah.
right? It's, I think that's a fine idea. The question is whether select board will agree to that or not. But yes, we could put that in.
we have been successful going before the select board
Yeah,
with different one-off items, you know. And this could be one of them, you know.
yeah.
And just the problem, we have, you know, a lot of information from our code enforcement officer, what's going on and how they need more detail into it.
Yep, I think that advise the town is a nice, clean way to say it.
But if we put that in, is that enough to enable this new committee to come up with some ideas and present it as an example to the planning board? Could we go directly to the planning board then?
Well, that's
Yeah,
kind of
I
what
would think so. I mean, you can advise them, doesn't mean they have to follow your advice.
I suppose anybody can go before the planning board, right?
That's right.
And there's certain, like a fire marshal, fire chief has to sign off on commercial development saying that, all right, fire department can service this new thing.
Right.
And it could be, and they have to provide a letter of support that acknowledging they can handle this new services. And it could be that also we need a letter that this committee reviews the application and has suggestions or approves it as it's provided, because they have to provide a site plan. And, you know.
I mean, if you drive to 27 toward Augusta, you see the solar farm there. They got some sort, I know they had to go before plan to put that in. And you see the new tractor, you know, place, and they're landscaping that extensively.
Exactly, that's,
So it changed it from just looking and seeing 50 different types of tractors and earth moving equipment.
well, that's a great example.
And now you're seeing it.
You see the RV
You
place.
see the RV place is blank,
The stone.
and they're doing extensive landscaping there, so. And that's only because there's an ordinance, otherwise it wouldn't have anything, I'm sure. But those things make a difference. Especially the immature plants are gonna grow and gonna fill in, and
So what Hans is bringing up is a perfect example of what we could deal with.
yeah. And Hans is probably gonna be the, you know, the boots on the ground. He'll be aware of things that are transpiring or people wanna do. And the quicker we can get something going. And again, this is part of our,
I think, and people are gonna see the results of your work. You know, your committee,
yeah,
you're gonna see, they'll see it right away.
yeah, Augusta must have an part of their ordinance and have a piece of it that describes what they have to do in commercial development along the roadsides, what type of trees, what, you know, mix they have to have, other requirements, lighting.
Yeah, so yeah, the lighting, all that is encompassed in the
It should be
commercial
encompassed.
development, but there is no beautification, just
Yeah.
per se, it's very minimal. And,
It's usually in the zoning bylaw for the commercial district. That's typically where you'd find it.
I guess what we understand that there's a minimal, it's very minimal here.
yeah, there's no zoning bylaws, or
Yeah.
no zoning other than village and.
Shoreline zoning, that's it.
Like.
I like
there's
it.
an
Right.
auto, you know, place on Route 8 and 11, they fix, car repair shop and other things, so they had, 3 or 4 little trees, and suddenly there was 2, just twigs and it wasn't robust enough anyway, but they did what all they had to do. So I think this will give us some more things that we hadn't anticipated from the beginning, but they come up.
Okay.
Well, that's a big area. I agree. This is a huge area of work for us over the years. I mean,
Yeah,
as Belgrade gets more sophisticated.
exactly. There'll be more subdivisions coming in and different types of other recreational uses possibly.
Let's not say subdivisions.
Yeah, you know,
Housing developments.
now you have ADUs you can put on. I don't know if we're in that zone for, you know, accessory dwelling units.
Partially, we are.
Yeah,
The state roads.
that's a lot of territory there. So a lot could change. And I think we do our best to get ahead of it.
Well, I was just reading an article about, this is worldwide, all the anticipated migrations with climate change that's already begun, and is of course likely to accelerate in coming decades. And the article mentioned, anticipated migrations within the US in coming decades to the north, from the south to the north. So
Being in the real estate business, I see it.
Mhm.
You saw today's paper, in some other publications today was saying the Augusta area is one of the hottest markets for homes in the state. Because it's so many people coming in that keep pushing up. First they were in, southern Maine, now they're just coming this way.
yeah, I mean, right. Well, I know that the Portland and whole suburban Portland writ large area is just outrageously expensive.
So they're working their way up the I-95 corridor, basically.
Yeah.
Rather than going way inland, they just keep going up.
Well, and when you get up into the mountains.
Yeah, so personally, I'm seeing that unbelievable, amount of change in demand. Not so much supply, just demand, but once you get enough demand, there'll be more. People are gonna be revving up the supply, and that's where all this is gonna come in, more commercial buildings, more residential. It'll come fast. So Paul,
As you say, Pat, but along with the change will come regulation. And we're part of that. That's
we don't wanna, be behind this and trying to catch up when, we probably gotta, now is the ideal time to get on that one piece, I think.
Throw it out to the select board and see if they bite.
See if they bite on it. We've been successful with that in the past, well, our committee has a reputation, I think, of well thought out things before we bring them to the select board, do a lot of research, discussion here, back and forth to other community members and stakeholders, and would do the same again, I would presume, and so that select board doesn't feel like they're out on a limb so much.
Just a point of a question that you bring up when we've been before the select board. I just wondered, what is the result of our effort to extend the CEO hours and get budget approval from the select board on that?
So, Hans, can you add, how many hours do you work now?
I think it's 27.
Right now, around 25 to 30 a week, but in the summer it'll be full time. And then, when summer season falls off, it'll cut back.
So less to do.
But technically I've got the phone with me all the time. I'm answering calls at home at 8 o'clock at night. So you could say it's full time. I'm just not getting paid for it all.
Yeah, but we went before the board to try and get you to be paid. And remember, it was a budget item. And I was wondering what the select board has been doing on this.
I think it was before Hans.
I know it was before Hans. But how do we?
Well,
we made a whole presentation, wrote a letter.
Because Hans just said that it goes full time. I guess when school's out, right?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not privy. I didn't pay attention during the budget and all that. I think they did approve a certain amount of money, so I know like last year, towards the end of the year, Lauren, like, don't work over this much a week.
Yeah.
She knew how much money was left, so. You know, she's budget conscious, and I think she's done the numbers to figure out what the demand was gonna be. I don't plan on putting in overtime.
No. So,
This summer.
so if I'm right, you do, once school's out, you're working 40 hours a week or you're close to that.
Yeah.
Until it resumes in the fall or sometime near that.
Yeah.
So that's the busy season. And
Well, the select board did respond to our efforts.
Yes, just not to the extent that we basically asked for a full-time CEO, and they went part way.
Okay.
so it's a step we may need. I think we'll see if we need another one. Based on what Hans comes up with, and how many things it seems to be working out, okay now. Okay, those are the business we had before us. Hans came in a little early today and gave me this is regarding the moorings. The letter the state sent us on the moorings and houseboats.
Well, it's more in response to the minutes.
Yeah.
I realized in reading them that there are some voids in information that didn't get to you. Starting with the the meeting with the Fish and Wildlife. Yeah. That's the first email.
Yeah.
Paul, Mike, I can email this package to you, but I did email a synopsis of the meeting to Lorna. Melanie was inquired as to what happened at the meeting. So there is a document there. And then the IFNW said we can only have one mooring, one boat per property without a permit. And I just referenced that's Title 38. I highlighted a couple lines within that regulation, basically saying that, the limit is one. However, another one can be granted to a landowner if they do have the shoreline.
Yeah.
The question about Coast Guard jurisdiction, it wasn't really about Coast Guard jurisdiction. It was a Coast Guard approved vessels. Every vessel that is given a hull ID number does have to go meet the Coast Guard's boating safety standards of manufacture. And that's typically signified by the plate on the boat, on the transom, that says the weight capacity, passenger capacity, horsepower ratings, and all that good stuff. So I also printed off the regulation where manufacturers have to comply with the U.S. boating safety, Coast Guard Office of Boating Safety. So
it's just this question on that, Hans. It seems that the concern we had about houseboats, everybody sort of chime in, was not about registered manufactured houseboats. It seemed like they were homemade houseboats. Is it more that wouldn't have this registration? Is that what more of our concern was?
Yeah, well, those would not be legal vessels, period.
Right.
You can't register a homemade car, and you can't register a homemade boat.
Well, you could, for example, first of all, Paul, I'm not quite sure I agree with what you said.
Okay.
We are concerned with both.
Yeah.
But to go back, for the homemade part, you could take a pontoon boat, your basic party boat, that has a registered hull and has a hull number and everything. Okay. You can just take off the stuff that it comes with in terms of the seats and everything. You just remove that, so you just have a flat deck, and then you could build a house on top, right? And then so you have a registered vessel, but it's no longer the way it came from the factory, once you get above the deck.
Well, the state of Maine registration
Yeah,
laws are, that would qualify as a homemade vessel.
yeah, but it would still have an HIN that came from its original factory.
If they still had the plate on it, they could use that, but if it was seen on the water,
Yeah,
the Fish and Game would just get rid of it. They
Yeah.
pulled the registration, it'd be void.
no,
They'd have to leave the water, yeah. I mean, it's, again, in the course, they referenced vehicles, you know, you can't make your own dune buggy and then register it as a street vehicle. It has to meet
Yeah.
vehicle identify, you know, the safety standards, the state police have to inspect it and verify, yes, this is.
but I mean, it'd be the same thing as just taking, you buy a Chevrolet at the dealer and you just take the basic body off it and put a different body on it, but you still have the same mechanism underneath. It would.
Yeah, I mean, we used to buy Ford Pintos and put a V8 in it and drag them.
Oh, well, but this is not putting a V8 in it. You've still got the same engine, you've still got this, everything's the same, but it's a different body on top, so it looks different and the seats are different, but all the mechanical stuff is still the same.
Mhm.
That's what you've got here with that I'm describing is still everything from the deck down, including the motor and everything, still the same. But instead of having a couch and a few chairs and, and a control panel, now you've got a little house there with some beds and whatever, and the control stuff's up front. So,
Well, they did stress, I hear what you're saying, that they did stress that it was registered, presented as manufactured, as it was intended to be,
yeah,
not, turning a car into a boat or other way around. And that's the intent. Now, in this office here, I've even seen where these little Suzuki trucks
Yeah.
are brought over for garden centers to use. People have registered them, and the DMV officers have come in and revoked the registration because they're not roadworthy vehicles.
I placed a call to the IF&W representative who was on that initial letter we received. And she referred me to a Dave Chaput. And Dave is a person working with, I don't know if he's with IF&W, but he's leading a state, he called it a task force that was looking into crafting a statewide houseboat ordinance. He said it's a big problem. Everybody's doing what they think they want to do, as the types of boats are homemade. Some people are buying, houseboats from out of state that are, made to be a houseboat and are brought in as a recreational thing for the guest house on the water, so to speak. But it was one of the things that our ordinance didn't want to happen. So I talked for about a half an hour, and I offered our committee's help, and I copied Hans with it if they want any input from Belgrade on this. And I haven't heard back yet, but he said thanks, and I think he'll probably get back to Hans as a representative of the town of Belgrade if they expand their group. But essentially they're working on it. They think it's a big issue statewide.
yeah,
Towns like us and Palermo just has one, Wilton, Rangeley, that kind of making up their own like we did.
yeah,
And now the state wants to sees it's a big problem. There's no teeth and, to say state waters, they're the ones that are gonna have to enforce it. So
right,
they're looking into it, more than looking into it, they wanna get something done on it, so we'll wait and see.
And the group that we met with, Chris McCabe, was the game warden officer, that he's on, I think, that same committee.
Yeah,
they're trying to gather all the information, who's got what problems, the nature of the problems, and addressing it as inland fish, inland waters
Yes.
separate from coastal waters.
coastal waters, because there's differences in how they
Different
do it
animals
for moorings and everything else, so. And,
But the one thing that they did stress is they cannot ban legal watercraft from any waters. So the whole idea is somehow slicing from legal to illegal.
yes, so it's gotta come out of legislation. That's what my take was on it, yeah. But they recognize the problem, and so we'll wait and see, and hopefully they give Hans a call for
But I'd love to put this.
Belgrade's input, yeah. Hans, I'll circulate this, I'll send this to Hans has these, emails from, IF&W. I'll send them to you.
Yeah, I have
Today,
all
tomorrow.
these in one scan,
Yeah.
so I can send it to you.
Send it to me and I'll forward it to everybody
I'll
else.
have
So,
like 5 pages.
any other, new business?
Well, the question I have, Pat, is to stay with the mooring ordinance for a minute.
Yeah.
Am I correct that if I have a second boat on a mooring in front of my property, that's illegal today?
Well, if we assign moorings, according to the state, the limitation of one mooring assigned under this privilege does not prevent the owner of a shorefront parcel from receiving additional mooring assignments under the allocation system for all other residents. So again, this is one of those things where it's not a problem until somebody complains, Most people, and I'm gonna say 99.8% of the people out here don't realize that there's even a limitation on moorings you're supposed to have in front of your house. We just do, and where it comes the problem is, I've had issue on Salmon Lake where you got a cove, houses are tight together.
Yeah.
Well, this guy doesn't look at it like looking at that guy's pontoon boat because he wants to watch the sunset without a pontoon boat in the way. So they start bickering over who owns what and who has the right to this. Well, I'm gonna put my dock over here and block them out completely.
Yeah,
It's
Really? That happened on Salmon Lake.
not far from where you live.
Well, you can't see the sunset from where I live.
Well,
But anyway, yeah, okay.
yes, it happens.
sunrise.
You gotta watch out for those flying pontoon boats.
So the suggestion is that we do nothing about the existing mooring ordinance, just let it be the way it is?
Well, they suggested that, they being Inland Fisheries, the Director of Resource Management, and Chris McCabe, said, remove lines 1 and 2 from section 7 and all of section 8. Because section 8 prohibits watercraft from state waters. Lines 1 and 2 of section 7 it was a mooring placed by a shorefront property owner or another individual with the shorefront property owner's written permission. Property owners can't give permission for use of state waters, is what they're saying.
Okay.
Number 2 was mooring shall be placed in the shorefront mooring zone directly adjacent to the owner's property. Again, we can't designate where they are unless we're permitting them. We can't prohibit people from mooring. It's an open mooring. People can drop moorings where they want. But as a shorefront owner, you're limited to 1 plus a.
Oh, so as a shorefront owner, I can plot my mooring down anywhere.
Yep, you can put it in front of your neighbor's house if you want to.
Oh, really? Aha. Well, that's very interesting. Because I own shorefront property, I can put one down, but anybody can put one down. So what's the difference?
Exactly. And they've got to weed through.
Huh?
They have to weed through a lot of it because anybody can put a mooring
Down anywhere.
Anywhere.
So having a shorefront doesn't privilege me in any way.
Not exactly.
Well, you mean no?
Yeah. Title 38, you read through it and
I mean,
you can read it 5 times and come away with 5 different opinions.
oh, I see. Okay,
Mooring sites.
Yeah, that's exactly what we tried to avoid,
Boy,
letting the mooring ordinance. It all started with people dropping moorings like around near the public boat launch. There was a sailboat there all summer or something, and that's the complaint we had.
yeah. One of our
And now,
former members.
now we've gone full circle. Is there any way? Is there any way to fix this? And what if we ask that? Can we adopt a mooring plan? Can we adopt a plan and say everybody is grandfathered as to what they have now? Yeah, everybody gets a permit for what they have now.
If you're going to change the ordinance, you're going to go to the town.
I understand we got to go to the town, but right now the ordinance has no teeth at all, according to Hans.
Well, no, it's not according to me, it's according to the state.
According to the state, sorry.
Yeah, state.
So, that draft I put forth covered a lot of everything, and it's not that I put it forth because that's what I want. It's just, if you don't have something in the ordinance, you can't enforce it. So the idea is you go the shotgun approach, you put everything out there, and if you ever need to enforce it, you can. In there, they have provisions for creating mooring fields. The municipality can create them, or like in this cove situation, a group of homeowners can get together and say, look, let's make a plan. I'm gonna have this site, you can have this one, and you can make this mooring field just organized better. And work together as neighbors. And the provision is basically they provide the field, they provide one representative contact information, so you have one chief to go to. So you're forcing them to kind of put their own little committee together for
Right.
this to resolve their own disputes. Because the last thing you want is someone saying, "Oh, I know how to fix this. I'll just go out there and cut their line." You know, that doesn't solve anything. It makes it worse. I've heard that somebody sit in my office and tell me that that's what they would do, and I told them, "Well, you're not going to resolve anything. You're not going to help the situation, and you're going to make it worse. And you just told me what you're going to do. So when it does happen, if I get questions, I can say, you told me that this is what you were going to do." So.
Another thing we were concerned about back then was the youth camps, some of the other businesses that have, moorings out there for their sailboats or other recreational things.
Right now, they're unregulated.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. We created an ordinance and we're kind of committed to enforcing some rules. And
But
by
if
having a
they're
harbor
all
master,
unenforceable, it could be erased, it seems to me.
but by having a harbor master, I need to enforce Title 38 should an issue arise. And you get rid of the mooring ordinance, you get rid of the harbor master. To me, that's a win-win.
Does that take a town vote?
To drop the ordinance? Probably.
What if it's determined unenforceable? Does that automatically does it?
Well,
Because that's what the ordinance says. If any of this conflicts with a state statute, the state statute is going to be the one to be enforced. So if every one of these items is unenforceable, it conflicts. To me, it almost means it's no longer exists, other than, I guess that's a legal question. How do you determine that?
Yeah, the question is who makes that determination?
Yeah.
And if it is determined to be so, you still have to, if you're gonna drop an ordinance, you still have to go and get permission from the town to do it, I would think. In fact, I know.
Yeah, you've got the experience there.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that, I'm just,
Yeah, I know, yeah, question.
a question, your
A
procedure.
further question, and just I have to clarify this, Hans, is that,
You only allowed one question.
oh, okay, I'm out of order?
No, you're out of questions.
Oh, other questions? All right, well, can someone lend me a question?
Yes, you could have one.
All right, thank you. It was illegal because we need a permit for a second boat. But what, Hans, are you telling me that we can't regulate within 200 feet of the shoreline, which we thought we could? Because
No,
those are state waters?
No, you can regulate within 200 feet. All the moorings need to be within 200 feet. You know, it's considered a safety zone. But there's exceptions to that, you know, where the water is extremely shallow. You are also allowed to go out to a depth of 3 feet on your dock. So let's just say you need to go 220 feet to get to 3 feet of depth. That's allowable. So that was a dock word, but you wouldn't put a mooring in 3 feet of water anyways.
No.
So we can regulate within 200 feet of the
And
shore.
sometimes further, depending on the water depth.
But if we, I mean, is there any way to rescue the statute or the ordinance that we put together? If we agree to delete those provisions the state wants, can we, you know, sort of say that everybody's in Belgrade is entitled to be assigned another mooring? Everybody in Belgrade can have 2 moorings. We automatically grant permits for no fee without any application. I'm just trying to brainstorm for a minute.
Well, I think that we could be very broad to say we have Title 38 as the state has written, and kind of just say, yeah, we're gonna obey the state speed limits. And you know, if you're doing 70 and nobody cares, then who cares? You know, it's don't ask, don't tell. You know, we've been doing it like this forever. We really haven't had a conflict with mooring sites, period.
No, but, well, we have had conflict. That's why we wrote why we did the mooring ordinance. We didn't do it just for.
I thought it was to eliminate houseboats.
Well, that
just one.
was just one piece. The part with the moorings was because there were some conflicts and issues.
At the boat ramp.
At the boat ramp, I think.
Some other, you know, other places around the.
Yeah, I mean, it was not anything huge and we absolutely have to take care of this right now, but it was, you know, there were some conflicts and we thought this was a good way to take care of it. I mean, if it may turn out that the ordinance creates more problems than it solves.
Because game wardens can also enforce this. If you have people mooring up in front of your boat launch or they're too close together in front of a popular house, you can have them dispersed by the official means.
Yeah, we had, at some of our meetings last year, we had not so much moorings, but, you know, complaints from owners of lakefront property that people are bringing up pontoon boats up, right up, you know, 10 feet from the water and kind of rafting together most of the day, partying.
Yeah, but that's not, that's not related to the mooring ordinance.
No, but that was
a separate
type of
issue.
You can't stop people from having fun. I mean, they don't drop a mooring down.
No, they
We
just
can't tell them not to. If they're anchoring,
anchoring,
it's
they can
different.
pick it up and go.
And that's another thing in this mooring. Somewhere I read here where same regulations also apply to anchoring. I don't think that's enforceable either. You know, you get fishermen, you know, an outdoor concert at a park, everybody's anchored up close. You get a fishing tournament, guys are anchored up close. People duck hunting together.
Well, you're gonna see it with the 4th of July. People go down, gather up to watch the fireworks from the lake or from the stream.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, it happens,
Yeah,
but it's kind of tradition, so good luck.
Well, I guess we're back to the adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And that's kind of what
Sometimes,
Chris McCabe said.
sometimes even if it is broken, you shouldn't fix it.
yes.
That's Chris McCabe said the same thing. If you don't have a problem, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because what you're gonna do is draw attention to the potential problem and it'll be created for you.
We don't want to make it worse. Yeah,
So again, doing a very broad-based ordinance and then just waiting for the problem to occur is probably the best course, because then you can enforce it if you need to. But if you have nothing, then where you were before. You've got boats in front of your public landing or whatever, and you can't do anything about it. Except for maybe call Fish and Game to look for an offense to enforce.
well, any more on this? Not that we've solved anything yet. Okay, at least for.
Well, I would say one thing that we should inquire about,
Yeah.
with just as preliminary, is the question about. To be sure, I know Michael said that we did need to go back to the voters. But to inquire with the select board that if we did want to suggest withdrawing mooring ordinance, whether in fact that would need to go to the voters or whether the select board could just do that. I'm willing to grant that it's likely we would need to go to the voters, but it's worth inquiring anyway.
Especially with the state,
Yeah, well, under the
back,
circumstances.
what they've said, yeah.
I agree with Lenny on that. We need to know what we need to do.
Yeah, I mean, as Hans said, if we don't have the ordinance, then we don't have the harbor master, and that can get rid of some problems. And if the harbor master weren't such a dirty son of a bitch, and I'm not.
No, he's not dirty. He takes a shower every day.
Okay, at least he's a son of a bitch. Anyway, yeah, it's just kidding, but yeah. All right.
Okay, old business consideration of the May 3rd minutes, another fine job, Paul,
Yeah, it was very good.
very good, glad you're hanging in there doing
Yeah, your minutes are getting better all the time.
it.
You'll have to be secretary in perpetuity.
Yeah,
Oh, thanks. It's
motion to approve the minutes, Lenny,
So moved.
any second?
Second,
Mike, motion to, minutes approved.
aye.
Any more business? Thank you, guys. We're all,
motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second. Doesn't require a second.
Thank you for that information.
Okay.
It's a privileged motion.
Okay, privilege. All right, we're adjourned. At
Adjourned.
5:14.
A motion to adjourn is a motion.
Your picture's crooked again. Your picture's, did you experience
I think
that?
Just
no,
click
something else is
the
crooked.
end,
I think the camera's crooked.
And,
bottom, yeah, hit that.
Bye,
Bye.
bye.
Bye, everybody.
ciao.
Ciao, ciao.